Sina, thank you very, very much. We are so thrilled to have our panelists with us. We have a few introductory questions just to sort of get things started. And Ashley, I realize you may be a little bit short on time in between being a superhero at work and in your personal life as well. So maybe we can start off with you in terms of how did your experience at Pacific Oaks prepare you for the field you're in now?
That's such a good question. But I feel like my experience with Pacific Oaks in the master's program was definitely one that helped to kind of mold me into the educator that I am today. I learned so much within the community of not even just the classmates that I had in all of my classes, but just in general with like my advisor and all of the fellow professors and everything. And so I think just experiencing, the community like classrooms, the intimate, settings of it just being a few, classmates in the classroom. And then also the networking that I was able to do definitely helped me. But then the conversations and the lectures and the things that the activities that we did in the classroom were none like any other that I had ever experienced before. We got to hear opinions from everybody, from different walks of life and how, their early childhood experience shaped them to be who they are today. And so it was just more of open-minded, I guess, experience that I was able to experience at Pacific Oaks. And I can't speak, highly enough. It just everything I still keep in communication with a lot of my classmates and, as we are in the field together. So it's just, the networking, the community, the family, the culture, all of that is what helped to kind of shape me into the educator that I am today.
Thank you, Ashley. It sounds as though you're touching on that community and camaraderie aspect
Absolutely.
of Pacific Oaks.
Mm-hmm.
Felix, it sounds as though you were about to say something, but you were on mute.
No, I just was agreeing with Ashley completely. I think the Pacific Oaks approach, prior to going in, I wasn't too familiar with a cohort process, and even the team approach wasn't my experience prior to it wasn't as appealing as it was once I was in Pacific Oaks, and I particularly enjoyed. There was really no borders, if you will, between the teachers, the advisors, and the staff and the students. It was one big group, one big family. And I know that sounds like a cliche, but it does make a difference when you're part of it and everybody working together. And it was a real team approach. And I really come to enjoy it and can appreciate working cohorts now and the team approach as opposed to my prior experience with it. So I applaud it, and everybody had a wealth of information. I think I learned just as much from my classmates as I did from my instructors. So that in itself was very beneficial. And then you've got a support group and a network of individuals once you're done. That's pretty amazing, and it's been very helpful.
Fantastic. Thank you, Felix. And everyone who's joining us, we will be having a live Q&A session. So as questions come to you, feel free to enter them into the chat. And as we continue, we'd love to have some perspective from some of our organizational panelists. So Dr. Harwell, maybe you can kick us off. What are some of the top 3 things that you look for when hiring a candidate at your center?
That is a great question. And I want to just respond to what Ashley and Felix are talking about in terms of the kind of education you're getting. And this will tie into the 3 things I look for. The way your program is structured is so valuable and trusted, because in my group practice, I'm really looking for people who are invested in community. So when people come and interview, I'm not just looking for a person to fill a position. I'm looking for a person to participate in our community, both to glean, but to give. And so I'm looking first and foremost is, are you growth minded? Are you curious? And are you generous and humble in your posture of learning? We really are looking for people who want to be a part of a learning community, and you've already been participating in one. So I think when you're interviewing, to even talk about the kind of program you're from and what you gained and learned and how that readies you to be a part of a team and participate is a really attractive candidate to me. I'm also looking for people who are self-reflective, people who have an affinity for their own reflective process, whether that's therapy or any kind of forms of self-reflection they're doing. And also to be conversational with your humanness, that I'm not looking for a clinician who knows everything. We're a training site. I'm looking for someone who's curious about what's going on inside of them, which is, from what I understand your program, there's a lot of conversation and self-reflection already happening. So I'd really encourage people to kind of come, not kind of trying to paint a perfect picture, but come as a person in process. That speaks volumes to me.
That was so wonderfully articulated, Dr. Harwell, and we understand. Just to clarify, are you hiring for clinicians?
I am. I'm hiring for clinicians, so please feel free to shoot us an email, and we'd love to start a conversation.
Wonderful, thank you. Zena, how about you? What would you add to the conversation here?
So very good information, Dr. Harwell. I think that we look for individuals who are focused and who are passionate, individuals who can articulate what it is that they want to do, and also be able to communicate well with our consumers. One of the things that we look for, so that's what we look for in the interview process, but a couple of things we look for before they get to the interview process is their relevancy to our environment, and details on their resume. Are they able to articulate their background? And then also, candidates should know that their resume tells a story, and what is the story that they want to tell, and then that will have the recruiter be a little bit more curious to invite them in for an interview. Sorry, it was felt like I wanted to cough there, but it's okay.
Zena, that was really helpful. Amber, can I follow up with that? Would that be okay?
Please do, yes.
I was just thinking about, and I wonder, Zena, how the role this plays for you in cover letters. I think cover letters are so important to us. Like, I loved what you said about being conscious of your resume tells a story. And I find that when people are intentional with their cover letter, I loved what you said about kind of that they understand that they've done research of the organization you are and ahead of time to think about, am I a match? And then telling the story about why, that speaks volume to me. And I wondered if that's a part of your process as well.
So we don't typically review cover letters. Throughout my tenured experience, what I've learned is cover letters are very helpful when they're going to a hiring leader or an executive, because you'll have more time to read through that information. So as a recruiter that has, right now I have about 63 openings, my time span is really, really short. And actually LinkedIn did a national average that recruiters only take 7 to 13 seconds to actually reread a resume. So if you include a cover letter and your resume is 1 to 3 pages, maybe sometimes even longer, it's still 7 to 13 seconds for one candidate. So I ran an ad over the weekend, and I have 104 people that now I have to go through and review those resumes. So that's why I say it's really important for a candidate to have their resume be able to tell that story, which helps them stand out much quicker, and then they move through the process versus I'm having to look for relevancy in their resume that might make sense for this role. So cover letters, to answer your question, cover letters are great if they're sending the cover letter and the resume directly to the hiring leader, but not to a recruiter.
That's such a great distinction, kind of knowing kind of who you're applying to and who you're going to reach. That's just really helpful.
Thank you, Zena. And thank you, Michelle, as well. Very awesome feedback. Ashley, I realize that you may have to head out in a few moments or not. So,
No, I'm actually good. I'm
Okay.
actually good. Yeah.
okay, great. Just let us know. And so with that in mind, I'm hearing 7 to 13 seconds. So Ashley and Felix, I kind of want you and our attendees to think about that a little bit and share with us, what are some ways that you have leveraged your experience at PO, your resume, your potential cover letter, if or whether or not you used one, to make yourself stand out and be noticeable to employers within that 7 to 13 seconds and beyond?
I would say definitely making sure that you are marketable for the position that you are applying for. That's what definitely helped me. I mean, of course, me coming from, my experience as a preschool teacher for so long, and then working with Child 360 as a program coach, of course, my my skills and my certifications are a bit different when it comes to applying for like a director's position. And so I had to sit down with myself and really think about, okay, as an executive director looking for a director, an applicant as a director, what skills do I possess that they would be looking for? And so just thinking of those general skills that stick out, and making sure that I am, or that, as you're applying for different positions, that you are putting those keywords into your resume that directly reflect and correspond to whatever the job posting is, especially given the short amount of time that some recruiters have to look over resumes. You kind of want to get straight to the point, because if you, and then also not even creating like a very long resume, right? Making sure that you if you have 10 job experiences, that's great, but not adding all 10 to your resume, right? Making sure that you have a few that are listed there, and just making sure that you, again, are using those key terms and phrases that correspond with the job that you're applying for. And so that's exactly what I did. It's great to hear that, as a teacher, I want to change diapers, but as a director, the duties are definitely different. And so just identifying what specific skills that I possess that are needed for the specific position that I'm applying for.
Ashley, so what I'm hearing is relevancy, knowing your audience, as well as some of the key points. And I understand sometimes in higher education, things can get a little bit nuanced when you're writing dissertations.
Yeah.
So it sounds as though keeping things sort of simplified works a lot more effectively. Felix, would you agree with that?
I completely agree with that. I think it's almost market yourself like a Wikipedia definition, where it's just the highlights and what stands out, so that it grabs the attention of, because all you need to do is get your foot in the door to go into the process at that point. And then it's where you, okay, turn on your song and dance and you highlight everything that why we should consider you. But getting those key points that and knowing your target audience is so key, because I've even received cover letters that you could tell were copy and paste, and they forgot to change the name somewhere, and it'll say like CCRC and We're Volunteers of America. And it's just like, okay, I can tell they applied for the same position and forgot to make some changes. So it's some of the more basic stuff. And but it's always just like short and sweet. Especially, I hadn't thought, like Zena said, that it does probably come down to 7 seconds, but once you get your foot in the door, then it's time to like, okay, let's see where you're going to take me from there.
Thank you, Felix. So it sounds as though those are some of the key points for you as well, just in terms of simplifying the application process, but also being detail oriented and not confusing your cover letter or application with another application you may have submitted. Before we move on to the next question, I was curious to also know what are some of the ways that the PO values of diversity, inclusion, equity, and respect have shown up in your roles as well as PO alumni?
I would say for me, you know, in my current role, working with different families from all different backgrounds, I've definitely had to implement all of these different values on a daily basis, you know, because as I mentioned, I do support families from different backgrounds, all over, you know, the Pasadena, Alcina area, San Gabriel Valley area. And so just, you know, making sure that I am, you know, implementing each of these values every day. It's hard to just pick one because I definitely use all of them, even if it's with, you know, my teaching staff or my admin team, making sure that we're supporting diversity and equity, inclusion, and most definitely respect. So these are such core values that could be used or should be used in every career path, right? In every career path that one would choose, making sure that you know, continuously implement these values on a daily basis. And so, you know, to answer the question, I use all of them in and out on a daily basis.
Thank you, Ashley. How about you, Felix?
Ashley, you and I are on the same page on just about everything. I would agree. I pretty much verbatim what Ashley said, but it's also something to do with our staff and dealing with the diversity of our staff, not just culturally, but even generational. As you know, being in the childcare profession, I've got staff who are fresh out of college, and I've got staff who are close to retirement, and adjusting and dealing with that has always been something that Pacific Oaks has like helped develop, because it's like, oh, okay, the different generations and how you address it and everything. And it's just staying in the forefront. And I think above everything else, it's just respect. Even if I don't have to agree with you, as long as I respect you, and we can talk it out. And sometimes it's happened twice. I was wrong. No, I'm just kidding. It happens more than that, but it's just being aware of it. Being knowledgeable that, yeah, okay, I hadn't seen it this perspective, and that always comes in handy. It brings us back to the discussions we would have in class. Oh, having these aha moments where it's like, oh yeah, I hadn't quite seen it this way. So that's always helpful, not just dealing with the families, but dealing with the staff as well.
Thank you. And you bring up such a great point that diversity is not only cultural, but it's also multi-generational as well. And there's so many other facets of diversity as well to keep in mind in the career workforce. So thank you both. Really, really awesome feedback and insights. So Dr. Harwell and Zena, we'll begin with you this round. So tell us a little bit about, after an employee or a job seeker rather has made it past that 7 to 13 second test, and they've made it to the interview, and you ask them, tell me about yourself. What are you looking for in that answer?
Oh, I'm so glad you asked this question. Tell me about yourself is somewhat of a loaded trick question. But what we're looking for from an employer standpoint, from a recruiting standpoint, is tell me about yourself as it relates to the job that you're applying to. Help me see the relevancy. Help me understand how you're going to solve this problem, how you bring value. Tell me about yourself. And I've had this happen so many times where people go back to high school and family and sports and activities, and it almost feels a little rude and to bring them back to what it is that I'm trying to get to understand. The other thing that I just want to add that's really, really important, if you get an interview, please know that it's a timed interview. Either it's 30 minutes, 45 minutes, or an hour. So if tell me about yourself takes 23 minutes, I don't get any time to really see and assess your value, because you're giving me so much information that's not relevant to the job.
Wow, Zena, I'm just blown away. And I'm sure a lot of our attendees and guests are as well. So thank you very, very much for that valuable piece of feedback. Dr. Harwell, how about you?
Well, those were wise words. I think, the things that stand out that Zena was saying that I really agree with is the relevancy piece. So really kind of, that's a broad, open-ended question and focusing in, and also thinking about, like, we do 30-minute interviews for our first round interviews, and that's pretty standard, and we don't like to go over. So being aware that when you're answering any form of a question, it's okay to go a little deeper, but know why. So I would say for us is tell the story of how you got to this place, sitting on our couch interviewing for this position. So that, so it might have some personal elements, but it's connected to how did I get into this field and how did I get interested in this type of work? So for instance, Michelle Harwell Therapy really does more psychodynamic, long-term work. We also do child and family work. So we're looking for people who have that interest. What called you into that passion, and what are you kind of looking to? So I think those are good questions. And I also think it's nice to have a little bit of your person in there, not so much as was saying that it overtakes, but I think connecting relationally during an interview helps to really just really make it kind of more conversational, which I think is a plus.
You touched on two things as well. So keeping it focused also, but still conversational, and also allowing them to share their personal, concise journey, specifically as it relates to the role. And Ashley and Felix, you both touched on some key points earlier as it related to diversity, equity, and inclusion and respect. So Dr. Harwell and Zena, curious to know how those values, so to speak, that we have here at PO find themselves into the work that you all do, and what you look for with potential candidates.
Good question. I think what I've experienced is a level of confidence from the PO individuals, alumni that I've interviewed. They're able to really spell out what their passion is and why they're interested in Pacific Clinics. They may be interviewing at other organizations, but they're able to incite and encourage the dialogue to the point where I'm curious to want to know more. So if it's a 30-minute interview, I might invite them to come back because what they're sharing with me about their passion and their purpose and why they chose this particular career field might be able to open up other doors. So I may not have that actual position available, but I can introduce them to a program director or, so I think that I've experienced a level of confidence and to be able to articulate their background, their passion, and their purpose.
That's great, Zena. Thank you.
Yeah, I agree. Similarly, in terms of the values of diversity, inclusion, equity, and respect, they feel like the bedrock of a healthy community. And so what I find is when PO grads come in, and that there's a readiness to be a part of a dynamic and diverse community and engage, as well as a diverse community of clients that we have. So a kind of readiness to engage over a kind of broad spectrum. And that's really important. We are a community practice in a neighborhood and a community. So we value people who want to engage in a broad community.
Thank you, Dr. Harwell. So at this time, we want to hear from you all. Do you have any questions for our For our panelists, as they mentioned, many of them are hiring. I also understand Families Forward is hiring as well. So this is really a great opportunity leading up to our career fair on July 30th to really gain some insight and prep yourself for potential conversations with them.
Hi, my name is Azucena. I believe I graduated PO in 2017. My master's is in human development with a specialization in human services and education. Absolutely loved it. It almost felt like therapy for me. It prepared me so much in life and in the current job that I had in Los Angeles. But I recently moved to Riverside, and I've had difficulty just landing a job, a career. I'm very confident during interviews. I feel comfortable during interviews in person or Zoom. I'm very adaptable and flexible, and I love just sharing my passion and always relating it back to that specific job position. However, what I am noticing is that even though I may have, let's say, between 70 to 80% of the requirements from previous experience, it almost seems that during the interview questions, that one question that I do not have a lot of experience in affects me. And I only say that because several of the jobs that I love to, that I've been applying for, it's mostly in the Parks and Recreation Department or Community Services Department through the county, city, or school district. And I keep noticing that one of the main questions is, do you have supervisory experience? I've actually was a volunteer coordinator in Los Angeles, part of a nonprofit organization. And I have that supervisory experience within volunteers, but they always ask if I have supervisory experience with other staff, which I do not. How am I able to address that or show them that I am, capable? And I always say, I'm willing to learn, I'm very open and flexible, but somehow I feel that that still affects my possibilities.
So my question would be to you, first, who are you interviewing with? Are you interviewing with a recruiter or you're interviewing with the hiring leader?
The hiring leader.
Okay. So all hiring leaders want to know that you are bringing a solution to them. And so when you say I'm eager to learn, or I'm trainable, or I'm willing to learn, that's not bringing a ready solution to them right in that moment. So what I would do is I would package my experience in a way where you have supervised coordinators. I would package that experience and speak about it as if you are that supervisor. So one way you could do that is I supervised a number of coordinators. They're at multi-locations, and they had this level of responsibility. Now my question as a hiring leader would be a little bit different. What type of supervision? Did you do performance reviews? Were you have managing attendance? It moves me from the dynamics of the job that you had into the skills that you're bringing into the environment.
Okay, that's great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Araceli Sosa Molina. I graduated in 2020 with a human development major and focus in early childhood education. And I just wanted to share that during a recent interview, I was hired at Caltech Children's Center. And one of the reasons why they hired me right away was because I mentioned my background knowledge of the RIE approach and Magda Gerber And that was something that none of the other candidates bothered to mention. And they were very excited and they said, oh, wow, she's somebody that we really want. Unfortunately, it wasn't a good fit. It was, I'd been teaching high school for 7 years and going into infants and toddlers. It was not a, it was, I wanted to see if it would work out, but it didn't work out for me. I fell 3 times in the classroom because they didn't have adult furniture. They had a teacher chair that was 2 inches higher than the child's chair. So with that being said, there was a workers' comp claim in progress, and it just didn't go well. But I interviewed great. I mean, to the point where they hired me on the spot and they gave me the tour on the spot, but it just was not a good fit. That being said, I was at a loss because I thought I was going to be able to work with younger children, and it's not feasible. So I'm going back to school to get my master's, to go into higher education and get my teaching credentials for K through 12.
Well, Araceli, we commend you for staying the course and not giving up on your passion in the field. And you being with us today just speaks volumes of your commitment and your passion. So we're looking forward to being in touch, keeping in touch, and staying apprised of your journey. So thank you for sharing your story. Very incredible. It looks as though we have a question from Ashley, who's joining us as well. Ashley, what's your question?
Hi, I am sorry my camera's off. I'm not feeling too well, so I'm in bed resting. I'm being shy and vain about my appearance right now. But it's really good to be here with all of you. And my question has to do with TMI, or too much information in an interview or in a resume or cover letter. Specifically for me, I have been running my own business for 11 years. And to be quite honest, I'm burning out and I'm considering returning to the education field or the counseling. I've done drug and alcohol counseling, but I have a master's in human development and social change. So I'm reconsidering, working in the nonprofit or healing arts and looking into the different organizations that are being represented here today and coming to that career fair coming up. But my question has to do with, I miss teaching, I miss connecting, I love therapy and how much it's changed my life. But because most of my background comes from running my own business as a declutter coach, an organizer, a healer, is that stuff that I can openly talk about as long as I relate it to looking for a job? Because I don't want to be misunderstood of like, oh, she's just burned out on having a business. Now she just wants a job. And when I really want to find a good connection, like a meaningful experience where I'm not having to be marketing all the time myself, because I didn't want that as part of this. So I love what I do, but I'm burned out on marketing myself. So does that feel appropriate, to bring up if it's done well, if I'm just being honest, as I find a better fit for me today?
So one of the things to know is your resume is your marketing document. It is the face of how you open the door to speak with the gatekeeper, which would be the recruiters, to then move on to the hiring leaders or the hiring authority. So you can use a functional resume rather than a chronological resume or a hybrid resume, where you're pulling together those core elements of your responsibilities, of your experience that are transferable in another environment. And you can do that without highlighting that you have been an owner of a business and you're burnt out. What I would do is, here's how you would be able to ace the interview. When you secure an interview with a hiring leader, always research them on LinkedIn. Understand a little bit about their background, definitely understand about the company, and then go in that interview with all of the value that you bring to that environment. And then if you want towards the latter part of the interview, you can say, and by the way, this is what I've done in my role as a CEO for this type of company. And I'm really looking to join your organization because it seems to be an open-minded growth environment where someone with these skills could show value in this environment. So you always want to leave it in a positive versus, I'm just tired of doing this business and I'm looking for something different. I think that's when TMI becomes TMI, because we want to know that you're not going to get burnt out in this environment and that you are not, that you want to learn more, you want to grow. The ultimate goal and objective for any hiring leader is to see their new employee, work with the company for a long period of time. I think that that's changed quite a bit with the pandemic where people are staying on roles for a year, maybe 2 years, but we want to see someone who wants to grow with the organization. And that could mean learning something new, taking courses, whatever that might mean. But first I would start off with which resume works best for you, functional, chronological, or hybrid resume. And you can Google that. And then I would do a personal inventory of all the wonderful things that I do as an owner of a company, and then move those into how transferable are those into Pacific Clinics, into other organizations. Look at the job descriptions and match up those keywords, and then you'll start to see the types of positions that you are interested in and qualified for.
Whoa, Zena was
Thank
all
you.
in my mind. I got off because I wanted to speak about transferable skills, and you nailed it. It is so important. And taking inventory of those skills is essential because many times individuals don't give themselves credit for the skills and the abilities that they truly have. I received a position based on transferable skills. So when I graduated from college, I felt, you know what, I had the school knowledge, the academic knowledge, but I didn't have the hands-on experience. So one of the things I did was network interviewing. That's really important also. So I did some network interviewing and volunteering. So for the skills that I felt I needed that I did not have and could not get, I did volunteer. I put myself on a schedule and I did a year worth of volunteering. And it really paid off. In terms of being able to identify your transferable skills, that's a basic for the service that I provide to students when we do the resume. I would be more than happy to work with you on that. And the first session we would do would be a brainstorming session, which is exactly what Zena said, taking inventory, looking at everything that you have done, pull it out. And I will be, again, more than happy to work with you. I am in demand right now, so you better hit me quickly.
Thank you so much, Pat. And Pat will be sharing more information at her upcoming job fair on the 30th. So be sure to stop by on Saturday. She will be there and very excited to meet with you all and share much more additional awesome insight. We realize we're at about, a little bit past the 10-minute mark. So we just want to close out the event and our panel by asking our amazing guests and team of panelists if there's any final thoughts that they would like to add, or what would be one piece of advice that you would like all of our guests to walk away with and equip themselves with as they continue applying for positions. Dr. Harwell, would you like to kick us off?
Sure. Well, I think that there's been so much rich advice. I wanted to respond a little bit to Ashley's question. Zena just did such a full response. One of my thoughts in addition was simply that she kind of touched on this, but that when you're speaking about prior experience, like TMI becomes when it's really slanted negatively towards, but when you tell, I love that word transferable skills, when you really tell the story of where you're headed from where you've been, I think that's just a really rich add. And in terms of just, I think the other thing I think about is the size of the company. Our practice is really small. And so we tend to be a little bit more informal and conversational, whereas I think larger companies are really going to be more formal in their process. And so thinking about kind of the size of company, who you're interviewing for, gives you a little context to how to approach the interview.
Thank you so much, everyone. So helpful.
Felix, how about you? Any final words of advice for our guests
I
and
think,
attendees?
yes, absolutely. Thank you again for the opportunity to be here. But I think if I can give some advice is, first and foremost, be yourselves during the interview process. That speaks volumes. You know, I hate dealing with salespeople. I don't like it. My last two cars were purchased through the credit union because I didn't want to deal with the sales. However, when you're in an interview, you have a couple of seconds to sell yourself, and people don't. And I have a hard time dealing with that. If you've done this and excelled in this, this is the time to put it out there, and it's not being showing off or being conceited. This is what you're selling, and this is what you're bringing to my organization. And it's really good to know that you know mastered the creative curriculum, or I don't know, are certified in this or that, something, because this is your time to sell. Or that if you're we have a Head Start program and you're a product of a Head Start program, throw it in the conversation. Don't overlook some of the most obvious things, because those could be breaking points to, like, okay, yeah, let's bring this person on board. And don't be afraid to ask questions. Please don't be afraid to ask questions. I think that would be it, Amber.
Thank you, Felix. Ashley, how about you?
I was sitting here as Felix was talking, and I'm like, we're just in each other's heads tonight, because everything, I would piggyback off of everything that he said. It's very important to sell yourself. Any, skills, certifications, any of that is related to the specific job that you're applying for, and you have it, sell it, because those are the key phrases and the key words and the skills that we're looking for. And so those are some of the things that I, did myself when I applied for my position. So definitely sell yourself. It's your moment to shine. Let us know how, how our company would benefit from having you on board.
Thank you, Ashley. And Zena, what are some final thoughts from you?
Have just totally enjoyed this evening. Thank you so very much for the invitation. So I am just going to say just a couple of housekeeping things. Make sure your voicemail is established. Recruiters always leave voicemails. Make sure you have a professional email address. We know what some of those other ones look like, and we're reading your resume to tell a story, to build a profile, to get to know you. Have an objective that matches the job that you are applying to. You can even use the title in the objective if you're going to use an objective. And lastly, this is very important, ask for the job. At the end of the interview, ask for the job. And you can do that such as, what are the next steps? What do you think I can improve upon? What are the next steps for me? Ask for the job. When will you be making a decision? Will I be part of the final interview process? There are different ways of doing that, but ask for the job.
So I'm hearing ask for the job. Don't be afraid to ask questions, find areas of relevancy, be mindful of the email address you're using. Remember that your resume is a marketable platform, so to speak, or marketable aspect of who you are. And Zena, Ashley, Michelle, and Felix, we just thank you so, so much for being our team of gladiators this evening, with guiding this discussion and providing such fruitful conversation. As many of you know, Pacific Oaks is very well known for breaking bread together. And so today we broke a different type of food, which was soul food, so to speak. So thank you all for the different ingredients you put into our dish this evening. And, you know, I can't go without just giving credit to our additional gladiators as well. Johanna Atienza, who is with us and who oversees our external relationships and institutional partnerships for PO specifically. And thank you, it just means so, so much to us. We also have Nubian, who is the AVP of admissions, as well as Michael Patton, who is our Dean of Students, and Amin, who is our Executive Director of Partnerships Development. We just thank you all. And of course, all of our students, our Alumni Association, our president for joining us. The list goes on and on. And if you were inspired by today, we would love to be able to continue hosting events like this and building the success of other alumni. So if you're interested in supporting the work of our students, there is an opportunity for your donation and gift to be matched by the U.S. Department of Education. There will be a link provided in the chat box very shortly. And also, you may have heard this mentioned during our time together today. On July 30th, we are hosting one of our most accredited and very well lauded career fair with none other than Pat Mita, who oversees the care office in the Student Success Center. And many of the panelists and people who are joining us today will have their organization featured, and many of our panelists are hiring as well. So we encourage you to join us, and we're looking forward to many more events with you all. And unless there's any further questions or comments, we will let you all get back to dinner with your family.